everyone. I'm Carl Bierock. Welcome to the Jaguar Football Podcast. And here we are almost on the eve of spring break. And with us today is the head coach of Seckman Football, Dr. Nicholas Baer. Coach Baer, so good to see you. I know you're busy getting ready for the spring break here, but some of our winter sports had a very, very successful season.
Yeah, happy to be here, Carl, as we kind of wrap things up and get ready for spring break. Last week, well, really this week, we finished up our winter sports season. If you followed the basketball team, I think they ended up with 20 wins, which ended up being a program record. They've really just been Coach Carroll's in his second year, and it's been a fun program to watch the last 2 years. It kind of really shows if you hold, if you have some consistency, some accountability, uh, you can have success. And it's been fun to watch a few of our guys in the program, including Seth Maxwell, Brody Kuby, Cam Benson, Henry Geedy, Elliot Burris, um, you know, have success other than on the football field. And, I had the pleasure of going to the district basketball game Monday night, and it was just a lot of fun. I mean, it was probably the craziest high school basketball atmosphere I've ever seen. If I had to compare it to anything, it's like watching like Duke versus UNC on ESPN. I'm not a big basketball guy. I don't know a lot about what makes a good basketball team. I know you have to make more shots than the other team. Um, but it was just a wild atmosphere. It was great for our kids, great for Seckman basketball, just great for our community all around. It really felt like, that night moved the Seckman basketball program forward. And Coach Carroll and the boys should be very proud of that for sure.
No doubt, a lot to be thankful for. When you think about like this academic year at Seckman, a lot of success. I know some wrestlers went to state and did really well and placed. Some of the other sports as well. Basketball seems like that program is well on the rise. So it's a fun time, I imagine, around the hallways at Seckman.
Yeah, wrestling. They stayed pretty consistent with what they do. They had three guys medal. Chance Rubel, football player, he took third. I'm sure he's a little disappointed. He wanted the top spot, but we're all very proud of him. We know he did a really good job, and yeah, just the sports in general really kind of on the uptick. Our girls basketball team, they lost in a heartbreaker. Would have got their first district win in a while. You look at the baseball team last year; they made it to the district championship. Football team, we've done it. Basketball gets to their first district championship. Um, we're just right there to sealing the deal and getting one of these things done. Hopefully, baseball will get the next crack, but then hopefully we'll get it done next football season.
Yeah, and it sounds like the work has already started, at least for you and your program, to get over that hump. You sent out some emails to the parents talking about what your plans are as they continue into the off season. One of them, it sounds like, is to do something that really hasn't been done here at Seckman, at least to my knowledge, is having some organized activities, especially for the linemen this off season.
Yeah, we want to kind of dip our toe in and see how spring practices can help benefit our program. Most people have heard of spring ball, spring football at the college level. The colleges they lift weights in the winter, then they have the spring practices throughout March and April, and then it kind of culminates to a big spring inter squad game at the end, and then they kind of go into their summer conditioning and then start up in the fall just like we do. Um, High schools in the South, they really started having spring ball and doing this. They're way ahead of the game. A couple decades ago, Missouri actually just adopted the ability to do spring ball 3 years ago, and we just haven't done it yet. It's kind of one of those things. Everybody knows I like to work pretty efficiently. Is it going to be something that's worth our time? Are we going to? How can we get the boys to show up? We're battling, or we would be competing with or taking guys away from their spring sports, which is something that we emphasize and encourage. We got a lot of guys that joined the track team this year, so now I don't want to drag them away from track. A lot of baseball players, a lot of a handful of lacrosse players, and even a few golfers. So when you think about having spring ball for football at the high school level, it seems like, oh, it's a no-brainer. Well, I wish it was. There's so many factors. First off, okay, 150, if I'm going to hold something and we have 145 returning players, how many of those guys can actually get there? Okay, we can do this, but is the quarterback going to be able to make it? All right. Oh, hey, I'm missing all of our linebackers because they have, coaches. I'm trying to, I don't want to burn out my coaches. There is no extra stipend for spring football practices. So everything that gets done in the spring is pretty much pro bono. And, not that, coaches obviously aren't doing it for the money, but, it is what it is. The coaches have kids. My sons, I got two baseball players, and now I got a baseball player on the freshman team. We're practicing baseball Tuesday, Thursday nights. We're going to play games on Mondays, then, games on the weekends. So it's like, you know, all my coaches have young kids. So it's like, okay, well, when can we really find the time? So a lot of factors go into, is this something we really want to do? So kind of talking with my offensive line coach, Coach Josh Freeman, we felt like the offensive line would be a good place to focus this spring practice on. Really every year, that's where we start building the football team. We build it with the offensive line. And if you watch the Super Bowl, you know why. If you don't have an offensive line, if your front five can't block their front four, or in our case, our front six, then, you're going to have a hard time. So we decided to, take our offensive line and use them for spring practices this year. So we're going to have 8 sessions, about an hour apiece. Sent those out to all of our parents and our players that have those dates. And really for us, it's going to be an opportunity to see who wants to start separating themselves from the pack, who can we rely on, who we can't, and, see how it goes this year and then consider expanding it in years to come.
Yeah, sounds like there's obviously the time commitment because you do encourage the players to run track and do other things to
Mhm.
keep themselves busy aside from just the nutritional aspect of taking care of their body and their mind. But if you had to like put your finger on like what would be the one big takeaway from this spring session that could impart not only on the players but also the parents as well to get them ready for when the June July camps start to pop up.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at the offensive line, that's the toughest position on the field as far as knowledge of plays and who to block and what to do. And, when it comes down to it, we gotta figure out who we can rely on, who's going to show up. And we can't wait till July, that third week in July at camp to figure out, who can we rely on. We got to start working on that now, and see who fits into those pieces and kind of, how the puzzle fits together and who fits best where. And, it's not like there is no equipment. There are no helmet. There are no shoulder pads. You can have hand shields and you can have footballs, per the state of Missouri. So, it's just kind of one of those things that, the offensive line too, not a lot of those guys are doing spring sports. They don't make the baseball team. They don't really run lacrosse, do play lacrosse. We do have a handful out there, throwing shot and disc, which is great. So, that's also kind of the group that's the most available this time of year. So, we're looking forward to it and happy to report back. We'll see how it goes and see how that group of players comes together.
Yeah, I look forward to learning more on future podcasts of how that experiment went. And then just, before we switch gears here, obviously we have the eighth graders. They're next on deck as they begin their transition into freshmen. Any
Mhm.
tips for the parents out there or maybe the eighth graders watching that are going to be moving? Because I know you're going to be coming to get them to lift here in the next couple months. Any type of wisdom to pass on to them?
Yeah, I know the eighth graders are definitely getting antsy. They're ready to lift and they're ready to get started. And we typically start those guys last weekend in April. I know there's a lot of programs around there start early. But this is something that we have found increases participation and has really been effective. And quite honestly, is enough time for us to build a pretty successful freshman team. So they'll start lifting. That last week of April, we call an introduction to weight training, really kind of teach them the basics, squat, bench, how we go about our business, the culture that we have, our standard. That way, after Memorial Day, when the summer starts, we hit the ground running. And, for those guys right now that are interested in playing football, it's stay active. Hopefully they're playing some sort of spring sport, baseball. We got a number of eighth grade teams in our flag football league. So I know I'll see a few of those guys out there. That's just kind of the biggest thing right now. Stay active. If you have access, to a gym. You don't need to be going crazy. You just need to be really learning the basics: bench, squat. You know, if you want to hit a few bicep curls, you can. You're not going to do a lot of those when we get in the weight room. But just kind of building overall strength. Honestly, worst thing you could do, and there's a very common misconception. I don't need you outside running miles a night. You don't need to be jogging to get conditioned for football. That's a very common misconception. Um, really, when it comes to conditioning for football, getting in shape, making sure your body's ready for games, that's only really takes a 2 or 3 month period. If you're jogging right now, you're really wearing your body down. You're breaking down some of your muscle that you could be building up, with some basic body weight workouts, push-ups, air squats, things like that. Um, but yeah, pretty much what I find out, kids will tell me, Coach, I've been running, 2 miles a night to get ready for football. No, stop. It's very good intention. And I love the dedication, but I want to try to point that in the right direction. If you're getting ready for football, that's great. If you want to run, that's great too. You want to get faster, we're talking 15, 20, 25-yard sprints. Maybe 5 or 6 of those in the evening just to get yourself out and moving. You go to YouTube, there's thousands of videos on different cone drills and things you could do, and anything that has you out and moving. We just don't want you running miles and jogging in the evening. So that's actually a really good question, and something that comes up at the high school all the time. I'll ask a player, yeah, you look a little tired, or your squat, I'm noticing it's kind of going down a little bit. Well, coach, I've been trying to run a mile or two a night, to do this, that. I'm like, well, not really what we want to do. So,
Yeah.
and I kind of try to explain it to them, and really good question there, Carl.
Yeah. Well, sometimes less is more. It
Yeah, you know
that's
me, that's my motto. So,
yeah. That's
for sure.
no, good to know, because you would think in your mind that, like, putting in the miles and the distance and just training like that every day,
Hmm.
it's a long season as it is. And again,
Hmm.
having a son that went through the program and talking with you on these podcasts, it's a grind, and you gotta be in, to make it to November for playoffs, and
Yes.
that sort of
Yeah,
thing. So
there's much more of a science to it now, than back in the day. As far, I mean, even when we get started with practice, I mean, after week one, we don't sprint at the end of practice. I mean, it's all about saving the legs and getting ready for Friday. And sometimes that's kind of the biggest disconnect I get from kids coming up. Oh, we want to run more. Oh, you really do want to run more? I don't think so. Yeah, I feel like every time we have the senior meetings are like, Coach, we should run more at practice. I'm like, oh, really? When it's August 25th and we just practiced for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and we're having running, I'm going to remind you about this, because typically that's when you guys forget. There's definitely something to be said about pushing the kids and making them work, and we certainly do. Um, but I would think, some of the results and the legs that we've shown on the field, especially in the third and fourth quarter the last couple of years, kind of proves that, a few of the things we're doing around here are correct. So,
yeah, I mean, just some of those early season games, they have those planned timeouts that,
mhm.
for hydration, and you could see who is hydrated, who isn't, and those
Yeah.
those
Oh,
fresh
yeah.
legs.
And I was just talking to a player about this the other day. I don't care what you do. Ain't no team's ready for week one. Week one, you're going to turn around the sideline. Everybody's going to be gasping. You just don't, no matter how close you try to get it at practice, and we get it very close at practice the way we turn it up, um, you're just never ready for that first game. Thankfully for what we do, um, guys aren't playing both ways, so they get that opportunity to rest. Offense goes out there on a 12 play drive for 6 7 minutes. The defense is standing there ready to go, and then they're fired up, ready to go three and out. Maybe the offense needs to be a little bit more conditioned, I guess, when the defense goes three and out. But it really is. You're that first game, you can't touch it. It's so hot. The emotions are high. Once you get to like week 2 3, you're starting to get a little bit better. And then 4 and 5, that's really when you want to be hitting your stride. And then 6 7 8 9, we're building up for the playoffs. So like I said, that's just something we've had success with. I always think of when I think of week one, I always think of Ty Kitchen in 2021. We're playing DeSoto. Scores his very first touchdown, very first varsity touchdown. It's 95 degrees out there. I think he returned. We had a safety, and I think he returned the kickoff. So we're all fired up. He runs 60 yards. He's coming over the sideline. I'm trying to celebrate with him. Dude's first varsity touchdown. Great player, one of my favorite kids, and he like runs right past me and straight to the trash can. Starts puking his guts out. So that's something like, man, I'm never gonna let you live that one down, Ty. But hey, guess what? That was the only time he did it, and then after that, we were good to go. So yeah,
No,
that's definitely an interesting topic. I'm sure there's teams and coaches and colleges that are much more scientific with it than we are. But I honestly around here, I like to use a lot of common sense. So
if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I just yeah, from what you're doing, it seems like it's working. And you mentioned conversations with the players about asking you questions about like conditioning or should I do this.
mhm.
You're having conversations with the players, the returning players, about, I guess I take it, your expectations of them for the upcoming season.
Yeah, every spring, my door's always open. I got players coming in and out, and we're talking about things, or coach, hey, I've kind of worked. What should I be doing, or what position you think I'm looking at next year? And so my door's always open, but not everybody always takes that invitation. Sometimes I forget that I'm like, big, mean, scary Coach Baer, I guess. So they don't always take that invitation, and they're always having conversations about football, but it may not necessarily be with me. And I'm like, I'm the guy you might want to talk to about that. But so in every spring, I think I started this, especially as the program has continued to grow, setting those expectations, giving, in the spring, letting the guys know, hey, this is where you're at. This is the work that you've been putting in the winter. This is kind of where you got yourself at. We've got to the fall. This is what you need to do if these are your XYZ goals. And so every spring I meet with each player. I'll meet with the seniors for 10 minutes. Obviously, they're going to get a little bit more time. Juniors to be, I'll talk for 5 minutes. I got them scheduled during ACT Lab and after school. And then the sophomores, right now I got 150 returning guys I got to talk to. So I'm going to pull those guys out of weightlifting, and then we'll have a little bit more informal conversation, but important. And I would suggest, first before every player comes into my office, parents, talk to your player. There's a lot of different. I get blindsided by a lot of things this time of year. Oh, well, I didn't really know you were thinking about playing this position, or hey, guys will say, hey, coach, I'm not sure I really want to play anymore, or I really don't know what my role is on the team. And then I explain to them their role, and they're like, oh, well, I really didn't even think about that. So it's just, I have found these conversations, one, to be enjoyable, two, to be very valuable, to setting the expectation as we move through the second part of the spring and into the summer. And some are hard conversations, and because certainly we have guys taking care of business and getting better, and we have some that aren't. And it's best for them to know that now. For every one guy that may not be getting it done, I've got 4 or 5 guys at that position that are. And I'm the only one that sees everybody. I see everybody in class, so they don't always see, hey, I've got this competition at D line. They're not seeing him work. I see every rep of every set. I'm walking around. I'm engaged with these guys. I'm seeing who's engaged in the lift and who's not. And for me, I'm looking for guys I could trust. I'm looking for guys that trust me, that I could trust. So if I can't trust you to hit that third set of front squat, well, I'm not gonna be able to trust you to get it done in the third quarter in the playoff game against Oakville. So it's like I said, it's just a great time to really air it out and go back and forth. And I kind of try to put myself in the shoes of the kids. I know some of them can be a little nervous, um, but it's always a fun conversation. So I always look forward to doing that. And that'll be after spring break. I got the schedule posted outside my door. I put it on Huddle. I've given it to the parents. I'll be communicating it a few times to the boys as we move through. So 150 of them and one of me, so they know their time and they're expected to be here.
It's good to have those conversations with them and set those expectations earlier, because you think just as a life lesson, and it seems, again, from the conversations that we had on this podcast, you like to help them on the field, but also off the field. And so having those expectations when they're going into something, can help them in the future. And you mentioned also what you see in the weight room. It looks like that you're have a big event here coming up with some max outs to kind of
Yeah, we're
gauge where the
testing this
progress
week.
is.
We're testing in the weight room this week. We test our 1 rep maxes on the squat, bench, and power clean. And it's one of those things where I already pretty much know. I've been watching these guys work, but it's a real good opportunity then for them to kind of test their strength levels and see how they compare, to other guys on the team. Strength is not the end all be all in being a good football player, but certainly not going to hurt. It's going to make you a better football player. And really, this is where, a lot of our games when we win them in the fall have been, it's very coach's cliche to say, but we've won those games in February and January and March, and the work we put in before we get out there in July. So, it's really so for some, it's going to be that wake up call. You look up at the board and you see somebody at your position, oh, you know, he's kind of taking care of it. He's taking care of business. I need to step my game up. And, for me, it's at least I'm very data driven. I was a math teacher for 8 years, took my schooling as far as I could go. I see my title down there. Uh, so, it's like I'm very data driven. And when I look at the team, I'm trying to build a team. I'm trying to make as many puzzle pieces as I possibly can. And my assistant coaches, my coordinators are checking in with me all off season. Yeah, how's this guy doing? What's this guy up to? So, we're talking about these different puzzle pieces and we kind of have an idea of, well, this is the type of body we need at this position. Well, this is the strength we need here. Well, if he doesn't have the strength at this position, but he has a little bit more athleticism, okay, we can get away with that. Oh, hey, this guy's got the athleticism and the strength. We're going to be at a very high level at that position, and that might ease some stress at another position. So, I kind of set some strength standards. I would say they're arbitrary. If there's any like strength and conditioning specialists out there, they probably disagree with me, and that's fine. I'm telling you that these are arbitrary. But, when I look at a varsity football player, if we can have a 365-pound squat, I feel pretty good about getting you out on the football field. If you have a 225-pound bench press, yeah, it looks pretty because you got 2 plates on each side. But I also feel pretty good that you can handle yourself physically on a football field. If you can power clean 225, I'm pretty confident you're going to be physically, you can handle yourself out on a varsity football field. Obviously, the skill has to come with it. I'm looking for varsity players, to at least total 750 or more. So maybe your squat is a little low, but your bench and your clean are high, and you're able to total that 750. When we add up your squat, bench, and clean, I feel pretty confident there. And it's just different for different positions. I can get a corner out on the field that doesn't squat 365. It's going to be hard to get a lineman out on the field that doesn't squat 365. So, I talked to the boys about the standards, and, certainly I've put guys out and I've started guys. I've had great players that didn't hit those specific standards, but they definitely pushed themselves to get as high as they possibly could. So, I'll be happy to report those when we get back together and kind of see how this year's team is stacking up to last year's team. And, our squats have looked pretty good. I'm pleased with those. And, we just started benching today and we'll finish up the week with power clean. So,
Yeah, because I think that's one of the things you've highlighted over the course of the last few years in your emails and even at the banquets. Like the 750 Club continues to grow, and it's multiples. It's just not onesie twosies. So, what would you say to like the parents or the players, maybe the freshman, sophomore? Just don't have as much time in the weight room. You're looking just for improvement over from where they were.
yeah. So, great question, Carl. Yeah. So actually, yeah. Hey guys, we don't rehearse before this, so
Yeah.
this is good. This is live, folks. I really wanted to hit on this. So when it comes to the freshmen, everybody's going to develop differently. Everybody's got different body types. Certainly I don't expect my 120-pound freshman to lift as much as my 180-pound freshman. Um, for freshmen, above average, pretty elite level is 650 or higher. So if we can get you to your total of your bench, squat, and clean to be 650 or higher, you're on pace to get some pretty good strength gains and be at a pretty high level in the weight room. So that's kind of that goal I always set. 2 years ago we had 25. We started with one freshman in the fall. We got to 25 by the end of spring. Um, last year we started with one, ended up with 23, I believe, in the spring. This year we actually started with six freshmen that were 650 in the fall. Um, those guys have definitely continued to improve, but we're trying to drag as many freshmen along with them as we can, just simply because we've talked about this before, Carl. It's a 3 or 4 year journey to start on a varsity football field here, and if you're not taking it serious freshman year, you're putting yourself behind. I know that, right? I know that, but it's hard to get a kid to understand that. Hey, right, if you're only totaling 550 right now, okay, well, it's going to be a heck of a climb by the end of sophomore year to get to 750 and be varsity ready your junior year. And that's kind of it's one of those things. I mean, you don't all of a sudden just gain all this strength. It's a gradual, you know, gradual release is not the right word, but it's a gradual climb to get there. So it's a good opportunity for me to kind of see, hey, freshman, this is where you're at. This is kind of the pace you're going to be at. This is what you're setting. If you want to be in the conversation going into junior year, this is what you need to do. Right now, your numbers are kind of setting you up to be a senior year contributor. So it's a good checkpoint, for the freshmen because there certainly are a few that aren't getting it done, and that we're going to be counting on. So I'm going to have those conversations, and hopefully we can right the ship for sure. And then with the sophomores too, you know, they're not sophomores anymore. They're football juniors. You're trying to become a varsity football player, and strength is going to play a key role in that. And I really like to get as many of those guys to 750 as I possibly can. Um, but like I said, that's just sometimes you have a body type, sometimes you're long and lanky, sometimes you just started a little slow freshman year, so it's going to take you a little longer to get to 750. Um, and so start having those conversations. Hey, I like your skill on the field, but right now your strength levels, you're really going to have to show out and do some different things to be a varsity contributor as a junior. Now, if you keep working, this is kind of where you go as a senior. So, once again, 750 kind of arbitrary. It's it's just, but you have to pick a number. When you set a benchmark for a kid, they'll want to achieve it, and that's just kind of, you know, how we've been operating around here and what we've found. And said certainly have had plenty of guys that could not achieve 750 on the weight board, but we're good varsity football players. So
Yeah, it just again, it gives, not, I don't want to say hope, but you're not going to transform overnight, and it's a buildup. You talk about how freshman and JV gets you ready for Friday, and it's a process. So just I guess you just trust the process and put
yeah,
in the work.
yeah. I mean, it's a huge process. I'm not self bragging, but today I hit a 300-pound bench press. It was the first time in my life, 36 years old, that I benched 300. I mean, and I've been going at it for a while. So it's certainly gratifying when you achieve it. I sent the video to my wife, so it's out there. But it's just kind of one of those things. It takes time to get there, and it's hard for me to watch guys waste time when I know they are, and that they could be getting to another level. And if I can get them to another level, our team's going to get to another level, right? Um, so when you're dealing with 14, 15, 16-year-olds, that's always the fun. So it's not
Yeah,
always right in front of their face. So
yeah. I think sometimes they may not realize it until they look in the rearview mirror and see either the opportunity that they took advantage of, or the opportunity they did not. And
yeah,
that's
yeah, just to kind of, we're going a little bit back and forth all over the place, but like I said, a lot of conversations this year, and this is kind of where the weather starts getting clear. Kids start getting jobs. They like the money in their wallet, and it's like, well, I don't want to play football because I'm going to get a job and I'm going to make this much money, and I'm always just like, I'm going to go make $20, $25. Slow down, just slow down. You're going to be in high school, like especially these guys going to be senior football players. You're only a football player for 7 more months. Slow down. I know some family situations require their kids to get jobs, and that's great, and I support that. But man, it's hard for me to watch these kids not be kids.
yeah.
They get to do this one time, And then like me and you, Carl, they got the rest of their life to work. Now I don't have to go to work. Obviously I get to play football coach every day. But I mean, you know, that's just my big takeaway from some of these kids. And we lose a handful of kids every year because well, hey, I'm going to go get this job, or hey, I want to go work here. And I had the opportunity to talk to a senior football player a couple days ago. He ended up not playing this year, not playing senior year, and it's really funny because he was kind of buried at the depth chart at tailback during camp. But you followed the season. How many tailbacks did we run through, right? And,
Yeah.
and by the end, I'm like, man, this guy he'd have taken some carries, some big time carries. And I got a chance. I always like to check in, see what these guys are going to be doing. They're hey, in 2 months you're kicked out of here, buddy. What are you going to go do? So I always kind of talked. I bring him in. I talk to him, and just kind of talk to the guy. I'm like, man, hey, I always wanted to ask, but it's like, do you wish you just would have played? Like, I mean, I know, going home and doing things like, but you're at every game. You're up in the bleachers.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, yeah. He's like, I wish I'd have just played. I was, I'd watch you guys down there, and I wanted to be in those moments. And it's just like, I know. I know. I wish I could have squeezed you to keep you on the team. And we had another linebacker very similar. It was just hard because he would have played. You would have been a part of it. And now it's over. So it just, if I'm talking to parents, I'm talking to kids. Slow them down. Just slow down. Slow down. Let your kids be kids. Play high school football. Enjoy the high school experience. And then you got the rest of your life to wake up miserable and go to work like the rest of us. So
Something to look forward to for sure.
yeah, I mean, look at all this bright, so it's just kind of one of those things. It's next to girlfriends and drugs, it's the next battle for a coach. So
Yeah.
the job.
Well, I think that will be a topic another day on the podcast. But yeah, I look over the shoulder.
Yeah.
I have now it's like a decoration, a Seckman helmet that was, used for 4 years, and
Mm-hmm.
now it's not. It's just going to sit here on the shelf behind me for, eternity.
Yeah.
But yeah, get out there and enjoy it. And before they get to high school, obviously with the booster club taking over the flag football, you released the numbers for the registration, and it was just crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, being a part of that this year and watching the registrations. And, this year, last year we actually had it open to, we had teams from Melville, we had teams from Windsor, and we had teams from different places. This year we closed it down. It was Foxy 6 Seckman only. And we still ended up with 350 co-ed players. And most of those were boys. And we actually, I know I promoted this on here last time. We have the first, like, only all girls league in the area. We have at least 70, 75 girls signed up for our girls league. I think we have enough to have 3 teams in each division. And that's only going to grow. So, I mean, it's just fun to get out there. I'm coaching 2 teams. I got a 2nd and 3rd grade team. And I'm also coaching a 6th and 7th grade team with my boys on it. And we've already started practicing. So, I'm looking forward to kind of getting out there. And, we're going to be playing games on Sundays from about 10 a.m. in the morning to 6 p.m. at night. That's how many teams we have. And it's just truly unbelievable the amount of kids that are being exposed to the sport and participating and having fun doing it. And then hopefully we can roll as much of that into our contact league going into the fall. So just a lot of fun to be a part of. And if you've never been out on a Sunday to check it out, come on out.
It's a whole different ball game. And what's really intriguing is that the stat on the amount of girls that signed up for like the all girls league. And I imagine there's going to be a day at Seckman that girls flag football will either A, be a club, or B, be an official sport. Do you see that trend, happening maybe around Missouri or the country for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, once again, if you watch the Super Bowl, you saw the commercials, and you saw the commercials, and you could really see girls flag football is growing in popularity, taking the very same trajectory as girls wrestling. We didn't hit on our girls wrestling team, but 9 state qualifiers, 1 medal. I mean, 50 plus girls on the team. Getting these girls out there and active. I mean, it's fantastic to watch. If you have a daughter or even a young daughter or daughter entering high school, there's a lot of possibilities. if you didn't play club volleyball your whole life, you could still play a sport when you get to high school. You know what I'm saying? Or if you didn't play soccer or club softball, there's still opportunities. And yeah, I definitely see, and talking with my bosses, I think very quickly here, I'll probably end up be coaching a girls' high school flag football team in the spring. If it's not coming next year, it's going to be coming down the pipe, and we'll have a Seckman girls football team here at some point. Don't quote me. I'm just playing Nostradamus here, but um, just from some conversation I have, it's coming sooner rather than later. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Uh, Opportunity for some high school girls, and I I've coached powder puff. I believe I don't even know the last 10 years probably. Throw that into my extra duties during homecoming week. Me and Coach coach powder puff. I've only lost one powder puff game ever, so I like to hold that. But a lot of girls enjoyed it that week, and want to carry it over into the spring, and it'll be a real exciting opportunity when we're able to provide it for sure.
No, we look forward to that day because it's like you said, it's Super Bowl. It was announced. I have family members in the St. Louis area that are in high school, and she's traveling around the country in tournaments. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's really taken off. So glad to see that continue. And
Yeah, I think we're talking Olympic sports too. Do they have it in the Olympics now?
I,
I
I
think.
believe it's. I mean, they had some crazy. I mean, if they had breakdancing, I imagine someday they'll have flag football.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I'm not sure that qualifies.
No, no, I think that was a one and done. But on the podcast, we always try to teach someone something. So I did some research. The ancient Egyptians invented the sundial. Now we're on Mullet Watch. I was wondering if you could tell the folks, what does Mullet Watch mean?
Yeah, well, this time of year it don't mean much, but I have my wife. It takes time to grow. So I had my wife cut it in last week. I'm actually kind of due for a haircut, so I have to talk to my barber, which is my wife. Uh, when I get home tonight. But my first year I didn't do it. Then I believe in 2020, we went 2-9. 2020, I just we kind of got a wild hair. Everybody was stuck in their homes, and then we got kind of a wild hair. I'm like, well, why don't you cut this in? And then we let it rip, and then it started to grow, and then all of a sudden the lettuce was flowing, and then you get the mustache going, and it's just kind of this persona, this attitude that I'm not sure if it matters to the boys, but I don't who knows. Um, but things have been pretty good ever since. So every year, for me, it's kind of that. I started now, so the boys kind of see, oh, season's coming up, time to lock in, right? Time to lock in. Oh, coach's hair is getting a little bit longer. That means the season's getting closer. Um, so maybe they think that it's just a lot of fun too. And I'll be honest, I cut it. I cut it that last. We lose. That's pretty much. Well, the mustache is the first to go because it's usually pretty late by the time I get home. Um, from detour that night. By the time we break it all down, but get rid of the mustache first before I go to bed, and then the hair maybe stays another week before the wife gets time to cut it off. But tell you what, I always for the month later, I shake it and I just start missing it. So like right now, I wish I was full blown, full lock, but I know it's going to take some patience. So it's a lot of fun, and I enjoy doing it. I'm not sure how much my wife does, but she's learned to deal with it. So I give her a few months off from November to February. So
Yeah, and as people are going to watch the podcast as we go in the off season to the season, you'll see the transformation, and maybe the only view of you the folks, the viewers have or parents is just from the sidelines during the season, so they don't know this side of you, so to
yeah,
speak.
go through some of the archive. I've clicked on some of the archives here. It was flowing this year, so it looked pretty good.
Yeah, it was really good, really good. So we'll keep an eye out on Mullet Watch, and then of course we have our social media channels. So if there's updates, we post the podcast. Also, our streaming partner over at Livestream STL, you can catch the episodes there as well. And Coach, this was a jam-packed edition. Actually, went longer than we thought, but that's okay. Wanted to give you the floor and have us, take us out on this spring break eve.
Yeah, this was a fun one. A little philosophical a few times, but I mean that's literally what I do on a daily basis. Conversations about Seckman football and trying to keep our boys engaged um, and moving in the right direction. And that's really what this season is for. The spring, obviously, we're taking care of business in the weight room, but it's all about communications, setting expectations, so guys know this is what I have to do when we get to the fall to make sure I'm mentally and physically ready, for the goals that I have. Because I never really want to get to the fall and a guy be surprised about what's happening. So for me, it's all about communication this time of year. Talk to your player. What is the progress you're making in the weight room? Hey, how did your conversation with coach go? Hey, I know you mentioned last week, you were thinking about a position change. Why don't you talk to Coach Baer about that? Or why don't you see what Coach Baer thinks about this? Um, talk to them and kind of help them be prepared for when they come talk to me. And, you know, my email's open, my phone lines are open, and I'm happy to be available anytime. So a lot of fun today, Carl. Hopefully we didn't put nobody to sleep. But some good stuff for sure. I know it's not as much fun as watching Cole Rubles streak down the sideline or anything like that, but a lot of fun today for sure.
No, I enjoy the conversation, Nick. It's always fun just to learn more about Seckman football, what's inside your mind and the coaches, and I feel that also it's very valuable for the parents to get a little bit more context in between the emails that you send out on a weekly basis. So, we're always grateful for your time.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel like I still try to put a lot in my emails, but this has definitely allowed me to put a little less in the email and a little bit more on here. So it's been great.
Sounds good, and we will talk to you again in April.
Thanks,
All
Carl.
right, thank you.